Hello and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name's Kat and this is the channel where I like to talk about books and ideas, and today we're doing a tag video. So this tag was created by Aaron Read a Book, and I was tagged to do this by Kat at Curious Cat. I'll link them both down in the description. But this is a really cool and interesting tag because basically what it does is it takes a bunch of BookTube channel names and makes prompts out of them, and then you pick books or recommend books based on those prompts. So I think this is a really cool tag, a really cool idea. So thank you to Aaron for creating this, and thank you to Kat for tagging me, and let's get into the prompts. So the first prompt is for the channel Books I'm Not Reading, and the prompt is a book that's been on your TBR forever. And I have a lot of books that have been on my TBR for a while, but when I was looking at my books to consider my answers for this tag, two stuck out as ones that have been on there really forever. And so these are Infomocracy and To Like the Lightning, and both of these are books that I bought in like 2013, like 12 years ago, and I remember it distinctly because I remember going into Waterstones to get those books so I'd have something to read on the plane back from the UK, returning from my year of study abroad, and I did not read those books on the plane, and so I know that they have traveled with me across an ocean and then back across the ocean when I eventually moved back to the UK. And like they're books that have been sitting around on my shelves before I even had like a proper bookshelf. They've just like been with me through multiple moves, through multiple flats, and I've just never picked them up. But the problem is every time I look at my shelves and I'm doing a declutter, I look at the back of these books and I'm just like, this sounds really interesting. So I think I just need to like pull them into, maybe I'll put them on my like 2026 TBR to kind of like force myself to read them because they both look really, really interesting, but I just never got around to reading them. But I'm hoping that now I'm like more kind of into the flow of reading, I will actually like want to pick them up. But yeah, I can't seem to part with them. So those are ones that have been on my TBR forever. The next prompt is for the channel Novel iDeea, and the prompt is a book with an interesting premise or plot device. And for this one, I picked The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And the premise of this book is that our main character is immortal, but she is cursed. And so every time she leaves someone's company, she's been talking to them, whatever, even if she just leaves the room and comes back, they will forget her. And so she has lived for hundreds of years and she can never be remembered. And then one day she meets someone who does remember her. And so we get to find out like why that's happening. So I was really intrigued with the premise of that book, and it was a really good read, so would definitely recommend. The next prompt is for the channel Revenant Reads, and the prompt is a book where someone has returned from the dead. And I had trouble picking one because the problem with this kind of like, you know, plot device, trope, whatever it is that often that's going to be a spoiler, and I don't want to spoil any books. And so for this one, I picked The Poppy War, the trilogy itself. Somewhere in this trilogy, this happens. So that's all I'm going to say for that. But also love that series, and it does feature this prompt. Kind of. The next channel is CriminOlly, and the prompt is a book where a crime takes place. And for this, I don't read a lot of like mystery thriller or like books where crime is like the central thing. So for this one, I decided to pick a couple of nonfiction books. So I have Bad Blood, which is about the rise and fall of Theranos, which was a blood testing company that could allegedly like test blood for like run a panel of tests for like diseases and whatever else on a droplet of blood, and their technology did not work, and the founders were recently tried and convicted of fraud. And then the second one for this prompt is The Wizard of Lies, which is about Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. Both really great, kind of like almost true crimey books, and so I would definitely recommend both of them. The next channel is Book Time with Elvis, and the prompt is a book about time travel, or someone named Elvis. And again, I don't think I read a ton of books that feature time travel, which when I like think about it is a gap in my reading. I should read more that have like some kind of time travel element. So I kind of cheated a little bit here, and this one involves immortal characters who live for a very long time, and we get to see their lives over a very long time. So it's kind of time travel-y in that like they're just traveling forward very slowly. So for this one, I said Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, which I read a couple months ago, and the like tagline for this is like toxic lesbian vampire vampires. I really love this. We're following 3 characters and they all obviously become vampires at some point, and we get to see a bit of their human lives, how they become vampires and what their lives are like after, and also how their lives intertwine. And obviously, because we're talking about vampires, they live over a very long time, and so we get to see them through like many centuries. So kind of time travel-y, but yeah, that's my answer for that. The next channel is Middle of the Book March, and the prompt is your favorite book that you read in March. And I wasn't sure how to read this, whether it was like your favorite book that you read in March, as in like your favorite book that you read this past March, or if it was your favorite book that you read in March, as in like a book that you read in March that is a good book for March. And so when I was choosing this, I picked the latter interpretation. And so this is a book that like I think is good to read in March. And so for this one, I said the Emily Wilde series. So it starts with Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And this is about a Cambridge professor of Dryadology, which is the study of the Fae. And we get to see her going to this like small icy Nordic town to study Fae in order to complete her Encyclopedia of Fairies. So the first book takes place in kind of like winter, and then later on in the trilogy we're getting into spring and summer. And so I thought this would be a good series to read in March time, because it is kind of like snowy and cozy to start with, and then you get into kind of warmer months, and March is kind of a transition between like winter and spring. So that's kind of what my thinking was there, but yeah, that's my answer for that one. The next channel is Book Buds, and the prompt is a book with a great friendship. And for this one, I picked Swordcatcher. And so this book, I don't know if you'd really describe it as a friendship. It's more like a brotherhood, but they are like not actually brothers. And so yeah, this book follows a few characters, and 2 of them are Connor, who is the prince of this like kingdom, and the other is Kel, who is his bodyguard kind of. And Kel was basically like taken out of an orphanage when he was a boy and brought to the palace, and he has been trained and like brought up to be Prince Connor's bodyguard. And he also sometimes, for reasons, impersonates him when it's determined that it's like too dangerous for Connor to be somewhere. But they've grown up basically like as siblings, as brothers, despite the fact that they have very different origins, and they have a very like close friendship and bond. And so for me, the most fascinating part of the series is their relationship and how close they are, despite the fact that like Kel is basically Connor's employee, and it's a very interesting dynamic, but I think it's also a very strong friendship. So I really love this series, and that is the first like book that sprung to mind when I was thinking of like really great friendships. The next channel is Obscure Book Adventures, and the prompt is a book that never gets talked about. So for this one, I'm going to say A Feather So Black. This is a Swan Lake retelling, and our main character is a changeling who was swapped for a human princess when she was a child, and she's been raised like in the palace by the queen, and at the beginning of the book, the queen sends her off to the Fae realm to get back the princess, her daughter. And so our main character has to figure out how to get the princess out of this Fae realm where she and 11 other maidens are being kept, and they turn into swans during the day and back into women at night, but they're all kind of like bound to and trapped in this realm. So I really love this book. It was very folkloric in its like description of the Fae and its world building and stuff, and so I just had a really good time with it, and I never really hear anyone talking about it. So if you want a good romantasy book that has like an interesting world, some interesting characters and stuff like that, then I would recommend A Feather So Black. The next channel is Savage Reads, love her, and the prompt is a book with a monster or beast or a human acting monstrous or beastly. And so for this one, I picked Iron Widow. This is kind of like a historical China fantasy world, and our main character is a pilot of one of these like giant robots that is used by the people of this world to fight these giant aliens. And so we have the giant aliens that they're fighting against, but we also have a lot of like monstrous people in this world, very kind of like not nice society. And so there's a lot more going on in this book, but I thought that was a good answer for this prompt. It covers a few of the parts of it. So I think this tag was originally in 2 parts, and so the prompts that we just answered were for part 1, and so now we're moving on to part 2. So the first one for part 2, the channel is Books and Bocadillos, and the prompt is a book that features or is about food. And for this one, I picked Paradise of the Blind, which is a book that I read for my Around the World book tour for Vietnam. And for this one, I think the main character, her mother, like sells food in either out of their house or the market, but there are a lot of very just like sumptuous descriptions of Vietnamese cooking in here, and it really made me hungry. And not only were the kind of descriptions of food very like evocative, but like food and how people get it and like how it's distributed and kind of like some of the politics of it, like it played a role in the story and like some of the messages the author was trying to get across, because she was kind of writing about the sort of like capitalist versus communist forces in Vietnam and how food was like a good almost like example of some of the differences and how the different systems worked and how well they provided for people and whatever. So that is my answer for that one. The next channel is genre books, and the prompt is a book you like in a genre that you don't usually read. And again, I was trying to think of like, I don't really read a ton of fiction outside of fantasy and romance, and not enough that like I have a good book that I would like to, you know, recommend for a prompt, if that makes sense. So for this, I picked a nonfiction in a kind of subject that I don't usually read, and that is nature. So for this one, my book is An Immense World, and this is a book about how animals sense the world, and it's a really fascinating read because there are so many more like senses that animals have that humans don't, and so it's even hard to describe how these senses work just because like humans don't have a frame of reference for them. So this was a book I really liked, and I don't usually read a lot of nature writing, so this was one that was kind of like outside of my usual genres. The next channel is Bookstalgic, and the prompt is a book that makes you feel nostalgic. And this might be a weird answer because it's not like a particularly old book or anything, but I picked The Bridge Kingdom, and the reason is I was reading that book when my husband and I moved into this house. So this is the first house that we've ever bought, and before we were renting in like flats that were fully furnished. And I remember sitting on an air mattress in our living room with like no furniture and reading this book in between like painting the walls in DIY and all that kind of stuff that you do when you move into a house. And so even though I don't want to go back to that time by any means because I like having furniture, it does kind of make me feel nostalgic every time I think about that book. I think about reading it as we just moved in, and it just brings back memories of that very specific time in my life. The next channel is Book Songs and Other Magic, and the prompt for this is a book about or featuring music or magic. Bonus points for magical music, and I get bonus points because for this one I'm going to say Sorcery and Small Magics. This is one of my favorite books. It is very underrated, and it's about two magic users who go to this magic university and they don't really like each other, but they're paired together in a class, and one of them accidentally curses the other, and so they have to work together to get themselves uncursed. And this book does feature magical music. It's one of the very interesting and creative ways that the author did magic in this world. So I really love this book and would highly recommend. The next channel is Passage of Time, and the prompt is a book that is set over a long time frame. So for this one, I cheated a little bit and I picked a trilogy that is set over a long time frame. And so for this one, I picked the Greenbone Saga, which I think the entire trilogy takes place over like maybe 26 years. It's a pretty long time for a sort of urban fantasy. So this one is a kind of like gritty urban Asian inspired fantasy. We've got some martial arts, we've got some like family duty, we've got some like mafia-esque, but not in the way that I think we usually think about it. And it's a really good trilogy, and it kind of has a slightly generational aspect in the entire like story arc. And so it's a longish time, especially considering that the characters are not like immortal or anything. The next channel is Your True Shelf, and the prompt is a book that you couldn't believe was a true story. And for this one, I picked A Woman of No Importance, which is a biography about Virginia Hall, who was a World War II spy, and she was American, but she worked in France. And not only was she a woman working as a spy in the 40s, but she also had a wooden leg. And this was very relevant considering that part of her job sometimes required fleeing from Nazis. So she was quite an incredible person on just many fronts, and the book kind of reads a bit like a spy thriller, and you just can't believe that like this woman was real and that like yeah, people did stuff like this. The next channel is Spread Book Joy, and the prompt is a joyous book that makes you happy. And I think there are a lot of books that are just quite joyous, but the one I thought of was The God and the Gumiho, which is a book that's based on K-drama and Korean mythology, and it features a Gumiho, a woman who can turn into a nine-tailed fox, and a trickster god, and they have to work together in this kind of like buddy cop dramedy to catch an extra bad monster in this like fictional 90s Korean city. It has a lot of the features of K-drama in that it is a little bit campy, a little bit ridiculous, but that also makes it very funny. And I had a really good time with this book, and I just remember laughing at it a lot. And it is light for most of it, and I think like light in the appropriate parts. So it is, I think, quite a joyous book as like fantasies that involve hunting monsters go. The next channel is Book Chat with Pat, and the prompt is a book with great dialogue. And for this one, I picked Six of Crows. I love Six of Crows for lots of reasons, but one of the things that does stick out is the dialogue and the banter and the back and forth between the characters. I think the dialogue is done very, very well in that book. The next channel is Roving Reader, and the prompt is a book that is set in multiple countries or lands. And for this one, I picked The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi. And this book is about a like retired pirate captain. She's like in her 40s, she has a kid now, and so she's kind of like living off on land, you know, doing her own thing. And some woman comes and offers her a lot of money to find her like granddaughter or something, and she just can't turn down the money, so she has to like get the crew back together, and so she has to sail around a bunch of different places collecting her old crew so they can go on this adventure to find this missing girl. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This was a really good one. And so the kind of like bonus prompt is a book that matches your own channel name or a channel that you love. And so my channel name is The Cat Bite. And so I was trying to think of like a prompt that fit with the channel. So the prompt I came up with was books that feature feral or angry cats. And so for this one, I picked a recent read for me, The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, which does have a like stray kitten who is very angry and scratchy and bitey. And it doesn't get a lot of page time, but I'm hoping it'll have more in the sequel. So that's my answer for that one. So in terms of people to tag, I'm going to tag a few people. I've looked and I don't think any of these people have done this tag at the time I'm filming. So sorry if you've already done this, but the people I'm going to tag are Dark Star's Book Cavern, It's Mimi Dwan, and A Dark Corner of the Library. So that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed this. I had a fun time picking out books for all of these prompts, and for all of the ones that I've read, which is I think all of them except for the first prompt, I really loved all these books, so I would recommend all of them. If I didn't tag you and you have a channel and you'd like to do this tag, then consider yourself tagged. And if you don't have a channel and you want to give your answers to any of these prompts, then feel free to do so down in the comments. I'd love to see other people's answers for some of these prompts. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, and if you'd like to see more of me in the future, please subscribe. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thanks very much.